do Jews have right to existence? Do they have right of self-determination to exist as a nation, as a state, as a country? Of course they do, just like any other group. But what are some of the arguments that we hear from pro-Palestinian people against the right of Jews to exist or to have their own state? The very first logic that they give is that the Palestinian Muslims, they are the original inhabitant of the land. They are the indigenous people. But is that correct? I don't think so. At least the historical, archaeological, and the genetic evidence does not suggest that. It has been conclusively proven that Jews were the original people of the land 3,000 years ago. There are archaeological artifacts that has been found which can link them to that land. Genetically also, it has been proven that they have linkage to the Middle Eastern people. So to say that Muslim people of the Palestinian region are the original inhabitant, the indigenous people, is outrightly wrong, and it does not hold any water, at least for me. The second question that we should ask is, was there ever a Palestinian country, a Palestinian nation? Did at any point of history did the Palestinian Muslim rule their own land? And again the answer is no, a big no. This region has been ruled by several empires over centuries, ranging from that region actually began with the kingdom of Israel and kingdom of Judea, which were Jewish, and later on that was ruled by Assyrian Empire, which expelled the Jews from the region, and then came several other empires like Roman empires, Byzantine Empire, followed by Greek, and then you had Crusaders, and then you had Ottoman Empire, which ultimately ended during the First World War when the Ottoman Empire lost the war, and British got hold of the region and they got the mandate to rule that area under the League of Nations. So that area has never actually been as a separate entity, as a separate country. The third argument that they give is that the Zionist movement, or the Jews, they are the settler, occupier, colonizer of the land. And again, when you look at the fact, it will turn out that that is totally wrong. The Jews are not the colonizer. Yes, a majority of the Jews came into that area as immigrants after 1800s. But there were always some Jews living in that area from beginning, just like some Muslims. So when these Jews were expelled in the ancient history, they moved into different regions. Many of them moved into the neighboring Arab land, and some of them went into European regions. But wherever they went, they were always persecuted. They were always discriminated. They were not allowed to undertake many professions, and the only professions most of the time that was allowed to them was money lending. And even in that professions, they were harassed. So when this harassment and this persecution increased, especially in the 19th century, they started to come back to their old homeland, the Jewish land, which is Palestine. And when they moved into this area, they did not grab the land. They started purchasing the land. They paid money to the landholders, most of whom at the time were poor peasants, poor farmers who were heavily indebted. So it was easy to buy land from them. And the kind of land that they were purchasing was not a very good cultivable land. They were mostly purchasing either the swamp land or the land which was uncultivated or the desert land. And because they were industrious, they managed to convert these land into economically productive assets, They bought tractors, they converted into farmland, they created power plants, and they did well. On the other hand, the people who were living there, the local Muslims, especially during the Ottoman Empire time, they were impoverished farmers living on subsistence farming. The Ottoman Empire had neglected that region. It was kind of depopulated actually, economically poor. So when this Jewish immigrant, they came to that area, they developed the area, and that area kind of became a magnet for other immigrants to come there. And it was not only Jews who were moving into that area. Muslims from other neighboring Arab countries were also coming to that area. Actually, if you look at this population trend, yes, there's a clear indication that Jews were immigrating, at least in a large number after 1850s, and that pace of migration increased massively, like tenfold in 1900s. But to say that it was only Jews who migrated is false. Muslims also migrated because of economic opportunities. Jews were migrating for both economic opportunities as well as because of other factors like persecution. Like most of the Jews who were living in the Arab areas like Yemen, Iraq, Morocco, Algeria, Egypt, Tunisia, etc., they also came to that region because they were discriminated. And of course, there was a good economic future. But whenever they came, they did not grab land just like that. They were in minority. They could not overpower or they could not just throw the landholders there forcefully. In fact, the kind of price that they paid to get that land was massive. And the kind of land that they were purchasing was not a good quality land. They were paying like $1,000 for every acre of land, every acre of uncultivable land. In the same time period, the price of 1 acre in the United States for a good quality fertile land was $100. So like for like, the Jews immigrants were paying like 10 times what someone would pay in America at that time. So to say that Jews were stealing their land is completely wrong. There's no basis for that claim. Now, the fourth point that they put forward is that this was a colonial project, a European colonial project. And I tend to agree, not completely, but at least there is some substance in that logic. When the British government won the mandate to rule this area, just before they won the mandate from the League of Nations, there was a declaration in 1917 by the British government, and that declaration was called Balfour Declaration, which essentially said that they would strive to make homeland for Jewish people in Palestine area. Once this declaration was known to the Jewish people, actually the declaration was because the Jewish people, Zionists, they lobbied for it. They were always lobbying the Western power to create a homeland for them because they were persecuted historically for a long time and they were exiled from their original homeland. And many Western power were sympathetic to that idea. And especially after the Second World War, or actually just during the Second World War, when the Jews were being exterminated, there was a Holocaust of Jews, then this idea got a big foothold and a big support. So in 1970, when British government came up with the Balfour Declaration that they planned to have a homeland for Jewish people in Palestine, a lot of Jewish people started migrating to that area. They came and they started purchasing land. If you look at the map of this mandate which was given to British government for ruling the area, and that mandate also included the mandate to create homeland for Palestine. That region comprised of the current Israel-Palestine region and the current Jordan. So when British got the mandate to create a Jewish homeland in Palestine area, what did they actually do? They gave the area on the eastern side of the River Jordan to make a new country called Jordan or Transjordan, and the area which was on the western side of River Jordan, that was supposed to be the Palestine, and the Jewish people were actually demanding that the whole mandate should be converted into the Jewish homeland, the area on the east of the river and the west of the river. But the area on the east of the river was already given to the Jordanians. So the area which was left was only on the west of the river. Jews somehow reconciled to that, and they agreed that they will be happy if that area on the west of the River Jordan is given to them. Initially, British did not do that. What they came up was a self-ruling entity for that part of the Palestine, and they came up with a legislature which has 23 seats, and of that, majority was elected officials, but there were 10 seats, but there were 12 seats. Of the 23, 12 were elected seats. Of the 12 seats, 8 went to the Arab population, 2 for the Jewish population, and 2 for the Christian population. But the Arabs, they rejected this plan. In their head, there was no seats which should have been given to the Jewish people. Jews should not have been given any political right, because they thought that at some point they would claim for their homeland. The Arabs were opposed to this idea from the very beginning. In fact, they were fighting with the Jewish people in that region. Even before this Balfour Declaration, there were several riots in the past. There were Arab militias and Jewish militias which were fighting between themselves. So ultimately, the British government had to drop this idea, and there was no self-rule legislature. Between 1922 to up until 1947, the Jews and the Arab people kept fighting between themselves. In fact, around 1936, 1937, when there was the Arab revolt in 1938, the British government came up with Peel Commission and Woodhead Commission, which proposed to partition the Palestine into two areas, the Jewish state and the Palestinian state. And as you can see in the map, the area that was given to the Jewish people was a small chunk of area, whereas the area that was proposed for the Arab state was the majority part of the area was going to the Arabs. But they did not agree to it, and ultimately Britain came to the conclusion that this partition was not workable, and in 1947, therefore they said they are done with it, they don't want to continue with it, and in 1948, when their mandate expires, they will leave that area. So in 1947, this area came back to United Nations, and United Nations came up with a partition plan. And you can see that plan in this map here. About 55 to 56% of the area was given to Jews, and about 44-45% was given to Arabs under the United Nations plan. You would say that the Jews were in the minority, around 30%, and yet a large chunk was given to the Jewish people. But the land which was given to the Jewish people was not the good land. It was mostly swampland, desert, and areas which were not suitable for cultivation. And yet the Jewish people accepted that plan. The Arabs, not surprisingly, rejected it. And in 1947, when this plan came, there was a civil war between the Arabs and the Jewish people in that region. And when Britain left that area in 1948, around May 1948, the other neighboring countries like the Syria, the Lebanon, and Egypt, they attacked, and Jordan, they attacked the newly formed state of Israel, because Israel has declared independence in 1948. So they were happy with the land that was proposed to be given to them. And they were happy with it. But Arabs were not happy. They wanted the entire land for themselves. And when this Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, Egypt, they attacked, it was thought that the newly created Israeli state is no match for them, and they would lose, and this area would ultimately become 100% Arabized. And surprisingly enough, the Jewish people were able to retain the area under their control. In fact, what happened is that Jordan annexed the Western Bank and Egypt annexed the Gaza. So up until 1967, from 1948 to 1967, West Bank was under Jordanian rule and Gaza was under Egyptian control, and the remaining area was under Israeli control. So during this period, no one claimed for Palestine. Jordan did not help to create Palestine, neither did the Egyptians, and the Palestinian people themselves. They did not clamor for Palestine. Only in 1967, when Israel attacked Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, and Egypt as a preemptive strike, because they thought that these countries are going to go on a war with them, the Israelis actually made the first or preemptive strike, and they decimated their armies. And they not just decimated these Arab armies, they also took control of the West Bank from Jordan, they took control of Golan Heights, and they took control of Gaza from Egyptian. They not only annexed Gaza, but the Israeli also annexed Sinai, a large part of the peninsula, which was Egyptian land. And they kept that until 1980s. So where I agree on this is that in the 1967 Six-Day War, Israel occupied West Bank, and it occupied Golan Heights, and it occupied Gaza Strip. But to say that Israel is the occupier of this entire Palestinian area is nonsense. I agree that they occupied these pockets like West Bank and Gaza, because that area was given to the Palestinians under the UN plan. So they are the rightful owner of that area, not the Israelis. And to that extent, they are the occupier. You can say they are the colonizer, or they were the colonizer, because in 2005, Israel came out of Gaza completely. They even brought back all the Jews from that area who had settled in the Gaza Strip. Though they did not come out of West Bank. West Bank still has large number of Israeli settlers there, and therefore, in my mind, that West Bank is occupied by the Israelis. Another claim that is made against Israel is that Israel is an apartheid state. And that is simply ludicrous. It is laughable. How can Israel be an apartheid state? Just ask one question to yourself. Do the non-Jewish people in Israel, do they have the same right that an Israeli Jewish person has in Israel? Can a Muslim become president of Israel or prime minister of Israel? Can a Muslim person living in Israel, can they choose any profession they want? Can they become doctor? Can they become engineer? Can they join army, air force, police, Israeli defense force? Can they become member of parliament? Can they become member of the Knesset? And the answer is yes, of course they can. In fact, there are Muslim doctors within Israel, engineers, Muslim engineers. There are members of parliament who are Muslims in Knesset. And therefore to say that Israel is an apartheid state is a total buncombe. Constitutionally, legally, Israel does not treat its citizens differently based on their race or religion. All citizens of Israel have the same rights as any other. So to say that there is a state-sponsored apartheid in Israel is completely wrong. On the other hand, if a Muslim in the West Bank chooses to sell his land to a Jewish person, he would either be killed or will be sent to jail. What about the Jews who have been living in the Arab land, not just within Palestine, but in regions like Morocco, like Syria, Egypt, Tunisia, Yemen? They were persecuted. At this moment, you can count the number of Jewish people in this whole area on your fingers. There used to be Jews living in that area in thousands, in lakhs, but most of them migrated either to Europe or to Israel. Now you will say they migrated because they found good opportunities. Yes, that's true. But many migrated not because of financial or economic reason, but because they were persecuted, because they were treated differently, because they do not have the same right like any other Muslims. So to say that Israelis are racist, they are practicing apartheid, is very rich coming from the Muslim pro-Palestinian supporters. I think the entire problem arises from the mindset that this land, this Palestinian land, is an Arab land, is a Muslim land, meant only for Muslims. As long as that mindset is there, and that has been in the charter of Hamas, that has been the mindset of PLO. Let us say, tomorrow, for example, all the Jewish people, all the Israelis says, okay, we give you all this land to you. So where will the Jewish people go? What kind of state will come in that location, which is called Palestine? Will they get the same right like the Muslims in the new Palestine, which would be ruled by Muslims? Will they be treated equal? I strongly believe that is impossible. I mean, look at the neighboring areas. How many Muslim countries in that area, in the Middle East, give equal right to its citizen? What is the condition of minorities? What is the condition of human right in that region for the minorities? And that is the problem. And that's why I feel that the Jewish people who have been historically discriminated for a long, long time, they deserve a nation for themselves. A place where they will feel safe, a place where they can practice their religion, their culture, but they deserve that place only to the extent that they give the same right to the other minorities living in that region. And that country currently is called Israel, where everyone has got the same right. So that was my take on this topic, and as usual, I'd like to hear your feedback. Of course, you can have different opinion than what I have shared. If you have found something which is contrary to what I have said here, I'd be more than happy to listen about that. Thank you very much.